Tonight, we begin with a story that unfolds like morning mist through the floating mountains of Pandora, where two hearts find each other in the most unlikely of circumstances. Before you settle into your pillows and let sleep carry you away, take a moment to get comfortable. Perhaps dim the lights and allow yourself to drift into a world where love blooms even in the shadow of conflict. This is a tale meant to guide you gently toward dreams, so let your breathing slow and your mind quiet as we explore the tender connection between Varang and Miles Quaritch in the time before the fires of war consumed everything they held dear. The story we're about to tell isn't one of grand battles or desperate escapes. It's quieter than that, more intimate. It's the kind of love story that happens in stolen moments between duty and desire, where two souls recognize something familiar in each other, despite coming from different worlds entirely. Varang, with her fierce loyalty to her clan and her deep understanding of Pandoran ways, never expected to find herself drawn to someone like Quaritch. And Miles, hardened by years of military service and loss, certainly never imagined that his heart could still open to something as pure as love. Their story begins not with dramatic declarations or sweeping gestures, but with silence, the kind of comfortable quiet that settles between two people who understand that some connections transcend words. Tonight, as you listen to their tale unfold, let yourself sink deeper into that same peaceful quiet, where sleep waits patiently at the edges of consciousness. In the weeks following the Great Reconciliation, when the clans had finally found a fragile peace, Varang often walked the pathways that connected the floating mountains at twilight. The bioluminescent plants would begin their nightly dance just as eclipse settled over the world, painting everything in soft blues and gentle purples. She told herself these walks were about maintaining security, checking the perimeters, ensuring the safety of her people. But truthfully, she walked because these quiet hours brought her a peace she couldn't find anywhere else. The war had changed everything, not just the landscape of Pandora or the relationships between clans, but something deeper within herself. She had seen too much violence, made too many impossible choices, carried too many burdens that no single person should bear. These evening walks helped wash away the weight of command, the constant pressure of keeping her people safe in an uncertain world. Here, among the floating islands and the singing trees, she could simply be Varang instead of the leader everyone needed her to be. On this particular evening, as Awa's children began their nocturnal symphony, she noticed she wasn't alone on the pathway. A figure sat on the edge of one of the platforms, legs dangling over the side, staring out at the distant mountains that floated like dreams against the darkening sky. Even in silhouette, she recognized him immediately. Miles Quaritch, the man who had somehow found redemption in the most unlikely of places, who had chosen to stand with Pandora instead of against it. She should have turned back. Protocol demanded it, really. Despite the peace accords, despite his apparent change of heart, many still viewed him with suspicion. Her own people would question her judgment if they knew she sought out his company. But something about the way he sat there, so still and contemplative, drew her forward instead of away. Her footsteps were silent on the woven pathway, but somehow he sensed her approach. He turned slightly, just enough to acknowledge her presence without startling, and she saw something in his profile that surprised her. Vulnerability. This man, who had once commanded fear and respect through sheer force of will, looked, in this moment, almost fragile. "Beautiful night," he said quietly. his voice carrying none of the harsh authority she remembered from their first encounters. There was something softer there now, worn smooth by whatever transformation he had undergone. "It is," she agreed, moving to stand beside him, rather than maintaining a cautious distance. "The mountains sing differently when the moons are dark." He nodded, as if he understood exactly what she meant, though she doubted he could hear what she heard. The Navi connection to Awa allowed them to perceive harmonies and rhythms that others missed entirely. But perhaps his time among her people had opened his senses to subtleties he had never noticed before. They stood together in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching the last traces of daylight fade from the sky. The air between them felt charged somehow, not with tension or suspicion, but with possibility. It was the kind of moment that could shift the entire trajectory of two lives, though neither of them recognized it yet. "Do you ever wonder," Miles said eventually, his voice barely above a whisper, "if we're capable of truly changing, not just our allegiances or our actions, but who we are at our core?" The question surprised her with its depth. She had expected small talk about the weather or the ongoing reconstruction efforts. Instead, he had voiced something she had been grappling with herself ever since the fighting ended. "Every day," she admitted, turning to study his profile in the growing darkness, "I look at my hands and remember all the violence they've committed. I close my eyes and see the faces of those who died because of decisions I made. Sometimes I wonder if redemption is even possible for people like us." He met her gaze then, and she saw her own struggles reflected in his eyes. Here was someone who understood the weight of command, the burden of choices that saved some lives while costing others, someone who knew what it felt like to carry the responsibility for things that could never be undone. "But then, I walk these paths," she continued, gesturing to the glowing forest around them, "and I feel Awa's forgiveness in every breath of wind. I see new growth pushing up through soil that was once soaked with blood. Maybe change isn't about erasing what we've done, but about choosing what we do next." Miles was quiet for a long moment, considering her words. When he spoke again, his voice carried a note of something that might have been hope. "I used to think strength meant never showing weakness, never admitting doubt. The military teaches you that hesitation gets people killed, that leaders who question themselves are dangerous." He paused, running a hand through his hair. "But maybe real strength is admitting when you've been wrong. Maybe it's having the courage to become someone better." The conversation felt intimate in a way that surprised them both. They were sharing thoughts they had never voiced aloud, revealing vulnerabilities they typically kept hidden beneath layers of authority and responsibility. There was something about the darkness, the privacy of this floating pathway suspended between earth and sky, that made honesty feel safer than pretense. "Tell me about your clan," Miles said, settling more comfortably on the platform's edge. "Not the tactical information or political alliances. Tell me about the people. What makes you smile when the weight of leadership feels too heavy?" Varang found herself smiling at the question itself. When had anyone last asked her about joy instead of duty, about hope instead of strategy? "The children," she said, without hesitation. "When they're learning to ride their first ikran, they have this expression of pure terror mixed with absolute delight. They know they might fall, but they trust that we'll catch them if they do. That trust, that willingness to take risks because they believe in their community's support. It reminds me why, All the difficult decisions are worth making. She settled beside him on the platform, their shoulders almost touching, as they gazed out at the bioluminescent landscape. The proximity felt natural, despite everything that should have made it awkward. And the elders, she continued, warming to the subject. They tell the same stories over and over, but each time they find new details to include, new wisdom to share. They've seen so much change, weathered so many storms, yet they still believe in tomorrow. Their resilience gives me strength when mine falters. Miles listened with genuine attention, asking thoughtful questions that showed he was truly interested in understanding her world, rather than simply making conversation. He wanted to know about clan traditions, about the role of women in leadership, about how decisions were made collectively rather than by military hierarchy. In return, she found herself curious about his past, about the man he had been before Pandora changed him. He spoke carefully at first, clearly uncomfortable with self-reflection, but gradually opened up about his early military career, about the idealism that had first drawn him to service, and how it had slowly been ground down by bureaucracy and compromise. "I thought I was protecting humanity's future," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "I convinced myself that any action was justified if it served the greater good. It took losing everything, including my own life, to realize I had become exactly the kind of threat I thought I was fighting against." The conversation drifted naturally, from topic to topic, as the night deepened around them. They talked about music, about the different ways their cultures celebrated life and mourned death. They discovered shared appreciation for the small moments of beauty that could be found even in the darkest times. A flower blooming in ruins, a child's laughter echoing through empty halls, the way morning light painted the floating mountains in shades of gold and rose. Hours passed without either of them noticing, their words flowing as naturally as the bioluminescent streams that wound through the forest below. There was no awkwardness, no forced politeness, just two souls recognizing something kindred in each other. The barriers of their different origins, their complicated histories, seemed to dissolve in the face of genuine connection. When the first moon began to rise, casting silver light across the floating islands, Varang realized with surprise how late it had gotten. She should return to her clan's settlement, should check on the night patrols, and review the next day's schedule. But she found herself reluctant to break this spell of intimacy and understanding. "I should go," she said softly, though she made no move to stand. "So should I," Miles agreed, equally reluctant to end what had become the most honest conversation he'd had in years. They sat for another few minutes in comfortable silence, neither quite ready to return to their respective responsibilities. The night air carried the scent of blooming flowers and the distant sound of water falling from one floating island to another. It was peaceful in a way that made the troubles of the waking world seem distant and manageable. Finally, Varang rose gracefully to her feet, brushing imaginary dust from her traditional garments. The movement broke the spell that had held them suspended in this moment between day and night, between duty and desire. "Perhaps," she said, her voice carrying a note of invitation, "we might continue this conversation another evening. These paths are always here, and the mountains sing every night." Miles stood as well, turning to face her fully. In the moonlight, his expression was softer than she had ever seen it, the hard edges of his military bearing smoothed by genuine warmth. "I would like that very much," he replied, and the sincerity in his voice made something flutter in her chest, like a night bird taking flight. They parted ways at the junction where the pathway split toward their respective settlements, each carrying the memory of unexpected connection into their separate worlds. But as Varang walked the familiar route home, she found herself already anticipating the next twilight, already wondering what other layers of themselves they might reveal to each other. The following evening found them both returning to the same platform, though neither had explicitly arranged to meet. It was as if some invisible thread had drawn them back to this place, where honesty felt safer than pretense, where the weight of their respective burdens could be shared rather than carried alone. This time, Miles brought tea, brewed from leaves his new clan had taught him to harvest and prepare. The ritual of sharing the warm, fragrant liquid added another dimension to their growing intimacy. Varang cupped the simple ceramic vessel in her hands, inhaling the steam that carried notes of mountain herbs and something indefinably comforting. "You made this yourself," she observed, tasting the careful balance of flavors. It wasn't a question so much as recognition of the care he had taken in its preparation. "The clan mothers have been patient teachers," he admitted with a self-deprecating smile, "though I suspect my technique still needs considerable improvement." "The intention matters more than perfection," Varang said, settling into her now familiar spot beside him. "Among my people, we say that food prepared with love nourishes the spirit as well as the body." The word love hung in the air between them for a moment, unexpected and charged with possibility. Neither acknowledged it directly, but both felt the shift it created in the atmosphere around them. They talked that night about dreams deferred and hopes rekindled. Miles spoke of his childhood fascination with flight, how he had spent hours watching birds and dreaming of soaring among the clouds. Military service had given him aircraft, and eventually an avatar body capable of bonding with Ikran. But somehow the wonder had been lost along the way until he found himself here, on Pandora, learning to see the sky through new eyes. Varang shared her own dreams of exploration, of traveling to the distant clans and learning their unique customs and traditions. Leadership responsibilities had kept her close to home for so long that she sometimes felt like a bird with clipped wings, grounded by duty when her spirit longed to soar. "Perhaps," Miles suggested quietly, "when the peace is more firmly established, when your people no longer need constant protection, you could take that journey, see the world through your own eyes rather than through the lens of responsibility." "And perhaps," she replied, with a smile that held both sadness and hope, "you could come with me, show me Pandora through the eyes of someone who has learned to see it as home rather than territory to be conquered." The suggestion surprised them both with its naturalness. The idea of traveling together, of sharing discoveries and experiences, felt less like a wild fantasy and more like an inevitable future they were slowly growing toward. As the nights passed and their meetings became a cherished routine, their conversations deepened and their connection strengthened. They began to share not just thoughts and dreams, but comfortable silences that spoke of growing trust and understanding. Sometimes they would sit for an hour without speaking, simply existing together in the peaceful darkness while the forest sang around them. Miles learned to read the subtle changes in Varang's posture that indicated when the day's burdens weighed particularly heavily on her shoulders. On those nights, he would offer silent comfort, perhaps a gentle touch on her arm, or simply his steady presence beside her. He never tried to fix her problems or offer unsolicited advice, understanding instinctively that sometimes what she needed most was someone who would simply witness her struggles without judgment. Varang, in turn, recognized when Miles was wrestling with memories of his past actions, when guilt and regret threatened to overwhelm the progress he had made toward healing. She learned to draw him out of these dark spirals with carefully chosen questions about the present rather than the past, or stories about her clan that reminded him of the beauty and hope that still existed in the world. Their friendship deepened into something more precious than either had expected to find again. They became each other's confidant and sanctuary, the one person with whom they could lower all defenses and simply exist as themselves, rather than as the leaders others needed them to be. One evening, as the season turned toward what Pandora's inhabitants called the time of gentle rains, Varang arrived at their meeting place to find Miles already there, but standing rather than sitting. He held something small and delicate in his hands, turning it over nervously, as if unsure of his decision to bring it. "I made something for you," he said simply, holding out a small carving worked from the pale wood of a home tree branch. It was a stylized ikran in flight, its wings spread wide and its head turned, as if scanning the horizon for new adventures. The craftsmanship was careful rather than expert, but every line spoke of time and attention lovingly invested. Varang took the gift with hands that trembled slightly, not from cold, but from the emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. She had received many gifts in her role as clan leader, tributes and tokens of respect or alliance, but this was different. This was personal, intimate, a piece of Miles himself, offered freely without expectation of return. "It's beautiful," she whispered, tracing the carved lines with her fingertip. "You captured something essential about flight, about freedom. How did you know this was exactly what my spirit needed to see?" Miles settled beside her, closer than usual, their shoulders touching as they both examined the small sculpture. "Because I see the same longing in your eyes that I feel in my chest," he said quietly. "The desire to soar above all the complications and responsibilities, to remember what it feels like to be weightless and free." Varang looked up from the carving to find his face very close to hers, his eyes reflecting the soft bioluminescence that surrounded them. In that moment, the distance between friendship and something deeper seemed as fragile as the membrane of a soap bubble, ready to burst at the slightest touch. "Miles," she began, but the words caught in her throat as she realized she didn't know how to express what she was feeling. The connection between them had grown so gradually, so naturally, that she couldn't pinpoint the exact moment when companionship had transformed into something that made her heart race and her breath catch. He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away if she chose, and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. His touch was feather-light, reverent, as if he were touching something sacred. "I know," he said softly, understanding without need for explanation. "I feel it too. This thing between us that has no name, but somehow feels like the most real thing in my life." They sat in the charged silence that followed, both aware that they stood at a crossroads where their relationship could either deepen into something transformative or remain safely in the realm of deep friendship. The choice hung between them like a held breath, waiting for one of them to be brave enough to exhale. Varang was the first to move, leaning forward slowly until her forehead touched his. The gesture was intimate without being presumptuous, a bridge between what they had been and what they might become. Miles closed his eyes and breathed in the scent of her hair, memorizing this moment when everything balanced on the knife's edge of possibility. "We should be careful," Varang whispered, though she made no move to pull away. "Our people, our responsibilities, the fragile peace we've all worked so hard to build." "I know," Miles replied, his voice equally soft. "But sitting here with you, feeling this connection that I never expected to find again, I can't help but think that some risks are worth taking. Are worth taking." The words hung in the air between them, like a promise and a prayer. Varang felt the truth of what he said resonate through her entire being, even as her practical mind cataloged all the reasons why this was complicated, why they should proceed with caution. But her heart, which had been carefully guarded for so long, whispered that some connections transcended logic. "Tell me about your dreams," she said softly, her forehead still touching his, their breath mingling in the space between them. "Not the ones you had before, when duty and survival consumed everything. The new ones, the ones that have room for hope." Miles was quiet for a long moment, his hands coming up to gently cradle her face. When he spoke, his voice carried wonder, as if he were discovering these truths about himself, even as he voiced them. "I dream of mornings where I wake up not to the sound of alarms or reports of distant threats, but to birdsong and the gentle rustle of leaves. I dream of having someone to share the sunrise with, someone who understands that peace isn't just the absence of war, but the presence of joy in small things." His thumb traced a gentle line along her cheekbone, and she leaned into the touch like a flower turning toward sunlight. "I dream of learning your people's songs, of understanding the harmonies that connect all living things. I dream of being worthy of the second chance I've been given, of building something beautiful instead of just preventing destruction." Varang's eyes fluttered closed as she absorbed his words, feeling each one settle into her heart like seeds finding fertile ground. When she opened them again, her gaze held depths of emotion that made his breath catch. "I dream of showing you the sacred groves where our ancestors' memories live in the singing trees," she whispered. "I dream of teaching you to hear Awa's voice in the wind, of watching you discover the connections that bind all life together. I dream of a future where our different worlds don't divide us, but make us stronger together." She paused, her voice becoming even softer, more vulnerable. "I dream of someone who sees me not as the leader who must always be strong, but as the woman who sometimes needs to lean on someone else's strength. Someone who understands that vulnerability isn't weakness, but courage." The space between them seemed to shimmer with possibility, with the recognition of something precious and rare. Neither moved to close the final distance, content for now to exist in this moment of perfect understanding, where words carried the weight of unspoken promises. "The rains are coming," Varang observed, tilting her face toward the sky where clouds gathered like soft gray blankets across the stars. "In my culture, we believe the first rains of the season wash away the old sorrows, make room for new growth." "And what do you hope will grow?" Miles asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Trust," she said simply. "Hope, the kind of love that doesn't demand we become different people, but helps us become the best versions of ourselves." As if summoned by her words, the first drops began to fall, warm and gentle against their skin. Neither pulled away from their intimate position, instead allowing the rain to bless this moment of connection. The water gathered on their faces and in their hair, mixing with the soft bioluminescence of the forest to create an otherworldly glow around them. "We should find shelter," Miles said, though his tone suggested he was in no hurry to move. "In a moment," Varang replied, tilting her face up to catch the raindrops on her tongue. "First, let me show you how my people greet the rains." She stood gracefully, extending her hand to help him up. When he took it, she didn't let go, instead leading him to the center of the platform where they had space to move. The rain was falling steadily now, soaking through their clothes, but neither seemed to mind. "Close your eyes," she instructed, her voice taking on the cadence of ancient ritual. "Feel the rain on your skin, but more than that, feel how it connects you to every other living thing it touches. The same water that blesses us will nourish the trees, fill the streams, sustain all life." Miles followed her guidance, allowing his awareness to expand beyond the immediate sensation of water on his face. Gradually, he began to sense what she meant, a feeling of connection that went beyond the physical, a recognition of his place in the vast web of existence. "Now," Varang continued, beginning to move in a slow, graceful dance that seemed to echo the rhythm of the falling rain, "we celebrate the gift. We show gratitude for the blessing of renewal." Her movements were fluid, purposeful, each gesture carrying meaning that transcended words. She danced not for performance or display, but as a form of prayer, a way of honoring the sacred nature of this moment. Miles watched her for several heartbeats, mesmerized by the natural grace with which she moved, the way she seemed to become one with the elements around them. Then, surprising himself, he began to move as well, his own gestures tentative at first, but growing more confident as he allowed instinct to guide him. They danced together in the rain, their movements sometimes mirroring each other, sometimes complementing, creating a dialogue without words. The dance became a conversation between their souls, a recognition of the harmony that existed between them, despite their different origins. When they finally stopped, both were breathing hard, exhilarated by the unexpected intimacy of shared movement. They stood facing each other, water streaming from their hair and clothes, eyes bright with joy, and something deeper. "That was beautiful," Miles said, his voice rough with emotion. "I felt something I've never experienced before, like I was part of something larger than myself." "You were," Varang replied, reaching out to take his hands in hers. "You are. We all are, if we're willing to open ourselves to the connection." The rain continued to fall around them, but they found shelter under a broad-leafed tree, whose bioluminescent flowers provided both protection and a soft, romantic glow. They sat close together, sharing warmth as they watched the storm transform the landscape around them. "Tell me about your clan's courtship traditions," Miles said, genuine curiosity coloring his voice. "I want to understand how your people approach relationships, how they honor the connection between two souls." Varang smiled at the question, touched by his desire to understand rather than assume. "Among my people, courtship is seen as a sacred dance, much like what we just shared. It's not about conquest or possession, but about discovering whether two spirits sing in harmony. The process is gradual, respectful, with many opportunities for either person to step back if the connection doesn't feel right." She paused, gathering her thoughts as she watched droplets of water slide down the luminescent leaves above them. "There are rituals and ceremonies, yes, but the most important part is the sharing of stories, of dreams, of the deepest truths about who we are. We believe that love built on pretense cannot endure, but love built on authentic knowing can weather any storm." Miles nodded thoughtfully, his fingers unconsciously tracing patterns on her palm where their hands remained joined. In my culture, relationships were often seen as contracts, partnerships for mutual benefit. There was less emphasis on spiritual connection and more on practical compatibility. But sitting here with you, feeling this sense of rightness, despite all the logical reasons why we shouldn't work together, I'm beginning to understand what I was missing. What were you missing? Varang asked gently. The recognition that some connections exist beyond logic, beyond convenience. The understanding that true partnership isn't about what two people can do for each other, but about who they can become together. The profound simplicity of his words settled between them like a blessing. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the rain transform the forest into something even more magical than usual. Every surface gleamed with moisture that caught and reflected the bioluminescent glow, creating the illusion that they were surrounded by fallen stars. I have something to confess, Varang said eventually, her voice carrying a note of shy honesty. These evening meetings, this time we spend together, it's become the part of each day I look forward to most. Even when the responsibilities feel overwhelming, I know that when twilight comes, I'll have this sanctuary, this person who sees me clearly and accepts what he sees. Miles turned to face her more fully, his expression serious but warm. You never have to confess feelings like that to me, he said. They're gifts, not burdens. And since we're being honest, I should tell you that I've started measuring my days differently. Not by tasks completed or problems solved, but by the hours until I can see you again, until I can share whatever thoughts have been building in my mind throughout the day. The admission hung between them, beautiful in its vulnerability. They were crossing invisible lines with each shared truth, moving deeper into territory that felt both thrilling and slightly terrifying in its intensity. Are we being foolish? Varang asked, voicing the question that had been dancing at the edges of both their minds. Two people from such different worlds, with so much history between our peoples, so many potential complications. Miles considered the question seriously, his thumb tracing gentle circles on the back of her hand. Maybe, he said finally, but I've spent so much of my life making decisions based on fear, on worst-case scenarios and defensive strategies. For once, I want to make a choice based on hope, on the possibility of something beautiful, rather than the certainty of something safe. The rain began to slow, shifting from steady downpour to gentle mist that created halos around the bioluminescent plants. In the growing quiet, they could hear the forest's night symphony resuming, a complex harmony of sounds that seemed to celebrate the storm's passing. There's a ceremony, Varang said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of significance. Among my people, when two souls recognize their connection, when they want to explore the possibility of a deeper bond, it's called the weaving of paths. She paused, gathering courage for what she wanted to say next. It's not a commitment or a promise of forever. It's an acknowledgement that two people want to walk together for a time, to see where their combined journey might lead. It's a blessing on the exploration of connection, a sacred recognition that some bonds deserve careful tending. Miles felt his heart rate increase at the implication of her words. What does this ceremony involve? He asked, his voice carefully controlled. The couple meets at dawn in a place that holds significance for both of them. They share a meal they've prepared together, symbolizing the nourishment they hope to provide for each other. Then they weave grass or vines into a simple cord while speaking their hopes and intentions aloud. The cord is blessed by Awa and kept as a reminder of the promises they've made. Not to stay together forever, but to honor the connection with honesty and care. The description painted a picture of something both simple and profound, a ritual that honored the sacred nature of human connection without the pressure of permanent commitment. "It sounds beautiful," Miles said softly. "Meaningful in a way that my culture's approaches to relationships often weren't." "Would you?" Varang began, then stopped, suddenly uncertain. The question she wanted to ask felt enormous, laden with potential to change everything between them. "Would I what?" Miles prompted gently, sensing her struggle. "Would you consider participating in such a ceremony with me? Not as a promise of where we'll end up, but as an acknowledgement of where we are now, of this connection we've discovered." The question hung in the air between them, like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Miles felt the weight of the moment, understanding that his answer would determine not just the immediate future of their relationship, but the entire trajectory of what they were building together. "Yes," he said simply, the word carrying all the certainty and hope he felt. "I would be honored to weave paths with you, to explore this connection with the respect and care it deserves." Varang's smile was radiant, transforming her entire face with joy and relief. She had taken the risk of vulnerability and found it met with matching courage and openness. "Then we should plan for tomorrow's dawn," she said, her voice bright with anticipation. "I know the perfect place, a grove where the morning light creates patterns like scattered jewels on the forest floor. We can prepare the meal together tonight, if you'd like." "I'd like that very much," Miles replied, feeling a sense of rightness settle over him like a warm blanket. "Though I should warn you, my cooking skills are still somewhat primitive by your people's standards. Cooking together isn't about perfection." Varang laughed, the sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "It's about the intention, the care we put into nourishing each other. Besides, I happen to know you make excellent tea." They rose together, reluctant to end this magical evening, but excited about what tomorrow would bring. The rain had stopped completely, leaving the air sweet and clean, charged with the energy of new beginnings. As they walked back toward their respective settlements, hands still linked, they moved with the careful reverence of people carrying something precious. The connection they had discovered wasn't fragile exactly, but it was rare, deserving of protection and mindful tending. "Sweet dreams, Varang," Miles said softly, as they reached the fork in the path where they would part ways. "Sweet dreams, Miles," she replied, squeezing his hand gently before releasing it. "And thank you for tonight, for the gift you gave me, for your openness and courage. Thank you for seeing something in me worth exploring," he answered, his voice carrying a note of wonder that she had chosen to trust him with her heart. They separated reluctantly, each carrying the warmth of connection into their solitary walks home. But the separation felt temporary now, a brief pause before the next chapter of their story began to unfold. As Varang walked the familiar path to her settlement, she found herself humming an old song about new beginnings, about the courage required to plant seeds in uncertain ground. The carved Ikran Miles had given her rested safely in her pouch, a tangible reminder of this evening's revelations. Behind her, Miles made his way through the forest with lighter steps than he'd carried in years, his mind already planning the simple meal they would share at dawn, already anticipating the moment when they would weave their first promises into grass and hope. Neither slept deeply that night, but both rested well, cradled by dreams of dawn, light filtering through leaves, of hands working together to create something beautiful, of paths converging into a single trail that led toward an unknown but promising horizon. The night passed gently around them, holding space for the transformation that was already beginning, protecting the tender shoots of love that had finally found courage to push through the soil of friendship toward the light of something deeper and more enduring. When dawn approached, painting the sky in soft shades of rose and gold, both Varang and Miles found themselves awake before the first birdsong began. Neither had slept poorly, but anticipation had stirred them from dreams filled with woven grass and gentle promises. The forest around them seemed to sense the significance of this morning, with every leaf and flower appearing more vibrant than usual, as if Awa herself was preparing a stage for their ceremony. Varang rose from her sleeping mat with unusual care, selecting garments that held meaning for her people, a woven top in deep earth tones that had belonged to her grandmother, soft leather arm guards decorated with symbols of protection and blessing, and a flowing skirt that moved like water when she walked. Each piece carried history and intention, transforming the simple act of dressing into a ritual of preparation. Miles, in his own dwelling, faced the challenge of honoring both his military background and his adopted Pandoran identity. He chose simple, clean clothing that wouldn't distract from the ceremony's meaning, adding a necklace of carved beads that his new clan had gifted him upon acceptance. The weight of it against his chest felt like a reminder of how far he had traveled from the man he once was. The grove Varang had chosen lay nestled between two floating mountains, accessible by a narrow bridge of woven roots that swayed gently in the morning breeze. Ancient trees formed a natural cathedral, their massive trunks rising like pillars toward a canopy that filtered the dawn light into dancing patterns of gold and green. At the center of the space, a small clearing carpeted with soft moss provided the perfect setting for their ceremony. Miles arrived first, carrying a simple basket containing his contributions to their shared meal. He had risen before dawn to gather fresh fruit and prepare a grain porridge seasoned with herbs his clan mothers had taught him to recognize. The cooking had been a form of meditation, each careful measurement and gentle stirring an act of devotion to this moment they were about to share. When Varang appeared at the bridge's far end, moving with her characteristic grace across the swaying pathway, Miles felt his breath catch. She seemed to glow in the morning light, not from any bioluminescent property, but from an inner radiance that spoke of joy and nervous anticipation. In her hands, she carried her own basket and a bundle of long grass stems that would become the cord of their ceremony. "Good morning," she said softly as she entered the grove, her voice carrying the reverence appropriate for sacred space. "Did you sleep well?" "Well enough," Miles replied with a gentle smile, "though I found myself looking forward to this moment more than resting. You look beautiful, Varang. There's something about you this morning that seems to capture all the light in the forest." She ducked her head slightly at the compliment, pleased but modest in her acceptance of it. "You look different too, more settled somehow, as if you found your place in this world we're building together." They moved to the center of the clearing, where they began to arrange their shared meal on a cloth Varang had brought for the purpose. The ritual of unpacking each item became a conversation in itself, with gentle explanations of ingredients and preparation methods, small stories about where each component had been gathered or how it had been made. "I brought honey cakes," Varang said, unwrapping small golden pastries that filled the air with the scent of sweetness and spice. They're traditional for ceremonies of beginning, meant to remind us that life, even when challenging, contains moments of pure sweetness. On tea, Miles added his own offerings, explaining how he had learned to prepare each dish, sharing the small failures and successes that had marked his journey toward understanding Pandoran cuisine. The conversation flowed naturally, building on the foundation of trust they had already established, while adding new layers of intimacy through the act of sharing nourishment. As they ate, the forest around them came fully alive with morning sounds. Birds called to each other across the canopy, small creatures rustled through the undergrowth, and somewhere in the distance, a group of young Navi could be heard practicing their morning songs. The symphony provided a perfect soundtrack for their quiet meal, reminding them that they were part of something larger than themselves. When they had finished eating, Varang reached for the bundle of grass stems she had brought. The stalks were long and supple, chosen for their ability to be woven without breaking, their surface smooth and pleasing to the touch. "Now we create the cord," she said, dividing the grass into 2 equal portions and handing one to Miles. "As we work, we speak our intentions aloud, weaving our hopes and promises into the physical act of creation. The cord becomes a tangible reminder of this moment, of the commitments we make to each other, and to the path we're choosing to explore." Miles took the grass stems with careful hands, surprised by their warmth and flexibility. He had expected something more formal, more elaborate, but there was profound beauty in the simplicity of the materials. "How do we begin?" he asked, genuinely wanting to honor the tradition correctly. "With gratitude," Varang replied, beginning to twist her portion of grass into a loose spiral. "We acknowledge the gifts that have brought us to this moment, the experiences that have shaped us, the communities that have supported our growth. I'm grateful for the second chance I never thought I deserved," Miles said, his voice carrying deep sincerity as he began to work with his own grass stems. "For the opportunity to learn from my mistakes, to become someone worth knowing. I'm grateful for your patience, for your willingness to see past what I was to what I might become." Varang smiled as she continued her weaving, the grass flowing between her fingers like water. "I'm grateful for your courage in choosing transformation over comfort, for your honesty about your past and your hope for the future. I'm grateful for these conversations that have shown me parts of myself I had forgotten, reminded me that strength can coexist with tenderness." They worked in comfortable rhythm, their individual chords taking shape as they spoke. The grass seemed to respond to their careful handling, becoming more pliable and beautiful with each twist and turn. And so, as the morning sun climbs higher through Pandora's floating mountains, Varang and Miles complete their weaving ceremony, their grass cord, now a symbol of hope, intertwined with possibility. Their story reminds us that love often blooms in the quietest moments, in shared silences, in gentle conversations under starlit skies. As you drift toward sleep tonight, carry with you the memory of their tender connection, the understanding that even in a world touched by conflict, 2 hearts can still find each other across any distance. Let their peaceful evening walks and whispered dreams guide you into your own restful slumber, where perhaps you too might find the kind of love that transforms strangers into soulmates, one gentle moment at a time. Sweet dreams.